Hey guys, welcome to Tech Notebook, and in this video we will be creating our redirect view in our Django URL shortener project. So let's get started. So now you need to go into our views.py file. We will need to type in from.models import ShortURL. And so what this will do is it'll allow us to actually make queries to our database and retrieve objects. So we will be using that in our redirect function. So now in redirect, let's remove this pass statement. Let's quit the server as well. So let's remove this pass statement. So now in redirect, we will need to query the database for the short URL that the user is looking for. And just as a refresher, the redirect function is a function that gets executed when the user goes to our domain / the short URL, and the user needs to be given a page that will show the actual original URL and allow redirects. So to do that, first we will need to actually add another parameter to this function and call that URL. And the reason why we're calling that URL is because inside urls.py, you see that we've named our string URL, and that'll be passed into redirect. So now when we go back into views, that's why we're having URL as a parameter here. So let me just go over how we're going to be doing this. So right here we have our models, which will contain our database. And so basically what happens is our views.redirect function will query this model, and models will give an array full of objects. So if we were to type in shorturl.objects.all right here, so if I were to go back and type in shorturl.objects.all, and I were to name that in a variable and print that out, I would get all of the objects that are stored inside our short URL database. But we don't want that, because then we'll have multiple URLs that we want to redirect the user to. So to fix that, we'll need to filter it down. So let's go back into this. So when we type in the filter command, instead of all, we type in shorturl.objects.filter and we pass in URL to this function. Then it will only return one object, and that object will be returned to our HTML file using Django templates, and that will be given back to the user. So now what we'll need to do is to actually create a variable and use that variable to store a query set given by Django. So basically a query set acts like a list in Python, and it stores a bunch of values. To do that, what we will need to type in is current object is equal to short URL dot objects dot filter, and then we need to open up parentheses, and in here what we will need to type in is, you see that it says short URL right here. Now we'll need to type in short URL is equal to URL, and we'll just verify there's supposed to be an underscore right here. Let's put that in. So short URL equals URL, and this will basically return a query set composed of all of the short URL objects that have this URL. So ideally there should only be one, but there is a chance that there is no object that matches, because that object hasn't been created and the user just went to the wrong link. And so to make sure that we don't display a random error, what we need to do is to just type in if the length of current object is equal to 0, that means there are no elements in this list or query set. That means that that page doesn't exist, and we will need to type in return render request, and we're going to return page not found.html, and that's this HTML file right here that says error page not found. So that's if this query set has no elements, and that means that there is no matching object. But if there is, then what we'll need to do is to return render. We need to put in request. We need to put in the file, which will be redirect.html. So now if we go into redirect.html, we see that we have these Django variable tags. So, well, how do we feed data into these variable tags? And the way we do that is by using a context dictionary. So a context dictionary is basically a dictionary that we pass into this render function, and that will allow the Django variable tags to actually replace the actual tag with data. And so the way we do that is we'll need to create a dictionary called context. So context equals, make a dictionary. And so in redirect.html, we called this object. So object, make sure this is in quotation marks. So object colon, and we need to pass in our current object, and there should only be one. So the way we do that is just current object at the 0th index. And now we just pass in this context dictionary right here. And we should be good with the redirect function. So now let's just go and run the server and go to the admin page and go into short URLs. So if you remember, we did create a short URL object with the short URL hello. If you don't have this, you can just create a new one. And so what we're going to be doing is just going to localhost/hello. And you can see that it actually redirects to the website. So we put in this docs.djangoproject.com right here, and it pops up the exact same. And if we just click go to website, it redirects us right to that website. So that's the end of this tutorial. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one.